have now, after cutting up all of your little pieces, you have now connected those loops, those pieces that are loops that have now made Plarn, plastic yarn. And now you're ready to crochet it into the blanket / mat. So let's talk really quick about crochet hooks. I use a 12mm. I find that that is the sweet size for myself, because for me, if we're using it for a mat to protect from the elements, then you have, with larger hooks, the holes in between each stitch is going to be a lot bigger. And so this, for me, helps the holes stay pretty tight. That way, if someone's using it as a mat, then they're more protected rather from the elements. Then if they're using it as a blanket, then there are less holes for the elements to seep through, so they can have a little more protection and comfort that way. But you're welcome to use a much bigger. I've seen people that use massive, and I mean massive, like size Q. I'm not sure what millimeter that is, but they use some rather large hooks. It's going to move your project along a lot more quickly. However, again, it's subjective and up to you. But for today's tutorial, I'm going to go ahead and use my 12mm to show you how to do that. So let's get started. You have your Plarn, and you want to start off by making a slip knot like you would. And the way I do that is I just wind it over two fingers. I like to keep them kind of apart like that. And then reach through and pull that extra piece of yarn, and there you have your slip knot. Pull it down. Right, there you go, and you're ready to go. You don't want to pull it too tight, because you're going to need that room in order to pull the plastic yarn through. Remember that working with plastic and opposed to working with yarn, it's a bit of a different feel, and it's a little more challenging in the foundation chain and your first row. After that, it moves along pretty easily once, like I say, you've created your foundation. So what you want to do is you want to start off with a chain stitch. Now, you want your mat to measure 3 feet across wide and then 6 feet of length. That's going to vary for everybody, because people have tight stitches, people have loose stitches, and for me 60 is the number, but that number might be different for everybody. So I suggest you keep a tape measure nearby. That way you can measure your work as you go, and once you've got 3 feet of your foundation chain, you can move on to the next row and then start working for your 6 feet. Today I'm not going to make 3 feet across, just because I'm teaching you how to do it, and I think you'll get the idea. It's rather simple, and it's just a little tedious in the beginning, but I promise it gets better. All right, so here's what you do. You've got your slip knot, and you're going to make chain, just a regular single chain stitch. You yarn over and you pull through the loop. Yarn over, pull through the loop. Yarn over, pull through the loop. Now, while I'm doing this, I'm not counting, because we're just trying to get our foundation made. And in a minute, I'm going to let you finish all by yourself so that you can do your chain stitch and measure, and then we'll meet back up when you have your 3 feet. I just want to tell you that when you yarn over, make sure that you haven't pulled the loop on your hook too tight, because if that happens, when you yarn over, if you've pulled it really tight, you're going to have a hard time really getting it back through. So make sure that you're keeping that loop a little loose on your hook, because it tightens up, trust me, as you go. All right, so go ahead and do your chain stitch. This is your foundation chain, and you want to go ahead and do that until you have 3 feet, and then I'll meet you back here. Okay, I'll see you in a sec. Welcome back, everybody. So now you should have your 3 feet of chain, right? It's 3 feet wide. All right, and again, I don't have 3 feet because I'm just doing this for tutorial purposes. So you have your last chain there, and now what you want to do is turn your work. It's facing you, right? And you don't want to go into this hook, the very first one, the very first chain. You want to go right into that second one. We're going to start with a half double crochet, and that's all you're going to use throughout the entire project. To make a half double crochet, you want to yarn over. You want to go through again that second chain, not the first. 1, 2. You want to go through, right? Then you want to yarn over again, pull through that loop, and that should give you 3 on your hook, right? Now you're going to pull through all 3. You're going to yarn over. Make sure that it's not tight. If it's tight, you're not going to be able to get it through. All right, again, you want there to be some play there. I like to hold on to the work like right here so it doesn't tighten up when I go to yarn over. But again, whatever works for you, whether you're a crocheter or this is your first time, okay? Just find what works for you. That's the important thing. So you've yarned over, and now you're going to pull through all 3 of those loops. If it gets tight, just be patient. When you pull through, it's going to be tight like that. Just let go a little bit and then pull. Make sure there's a little give on your hook, okay? So then you're going to go over to the next chain, right? You're going to yarn over. Remember, keeping some looseness there. You want to go through that loop, yarn over, pull through. You now have 3 on your hook. And while we're looking here, you've got a little tear in the plastic, so be gentle. But once you've created the stitch, it makes it pretty strong. So again, pull, make sure there's some pull, right? Then yarn over. And again, I like to hold on here. It pulls it down. I'm pulling tight with my finger on the working yarn just to make sure that this doesn't go crazy and stays up under that hook. And then patience, guys. This foundation chain can be a little tedious at first. All right? It feels like, oh my gosh, it's going to break. It's pretty sturdy. All right? So you're going to yarn over, go through. You have 3 on your hook, and then you pull through all 3. Yarn over, go into your next loop, pull through, yarn over, go through all 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you finish this row all the way down to your end of your 3 feet, and then we'll meet back and do it again. And it'll be just a tad bit different and a lot easier. Okay, I'll see you back in a sec. Okay, so we're coming up on our last maybe 5 stitches here. Again, we're yarning over, and if you've come back, then you are not you're not giving up, and I'm so glad, because I've been doing this for quite a long time, and even now sometimes this foundation chain can be a little challenging. Some of you might have breezed right through it, but sometimes it can just be so difficult because there's the foundation chain isn't as sturdy as what you're about to start working with. So let me just finish this up. Look at you having to wait on me. All right. All right, here we come up to our last stitch. See that? All right, so I'm going to yarn over. I'm on my last stitch, right? And I go through, pull up, and let me just tell you a little trick. You want your last stitch on the end of your rows to be as loose as possible, because when you get down to the final stitch at the end, you're going to want that loose, because going into the stitches can be a little challenging. So I finished that last stitch on the end there, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to yarn over and chain one. Okay? Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my work around. Okay? And I want you to take a look at it. Now you're looking at it exactly the way I want you to see it. I'm looking at it from the side view, but I want you to look and notice that you now have these loops on top. For those of you who are experienced crochet folks, then you know what I'm talking about. But for those of you who are doing this for the first time, you see these little two loops? You're going to start going through those two loops, okay? So what you did is you did your chain one, you turned your work. Now you're going to do the same exact thing that you did down the foundation chain. You're going to yarn over. You're going to go into this first loop right here, not over here. Don't get confused. That's your chain one. You see that little hole right there? Don't go into that. You want to go into that first loop where you see these two double, it looks like a little side teardrop. Tears of joy though, we're doing something good. All right. And then you want to yarn over, and you want to go up under so that you are going through both of those loops. You pull through, you have 3 on your hook, but remember to keep your stitches loose. Yarn over, go to the next one. You're going through, see that? You're going through both of those, pull up, go through all 3 loops. Remember to keep this tight while you're working on it, because if you don't keep this tight as you're working on it, it can pucker. The next thing you know, you're going through one, or you'll find yourself at the end of a loop and it's kind of puckered on you, and you don't want that. If there's a tiny pucker at the end, that's one thing. If there's like a little bitty pucker, you can kind of crochet that in. Crochet is pretty forgiving. But if it's a big massive loop, when you get down to here and it's open up like this, you've got this tight part and this part like really up high, then you're going to want to undo your work and tighten it down a little bit. So just try to keep a hold of it however you hold your working yarn, in this case working Plarn. And then just yarn over, yarn over, go through the loop, yarn over, go through all 3. I'm going to do a couple more. 1, yarn over, and pull through all 3. And this is where it starts to get a lot easier. You get to a good feel of how you want to hold your yarn, and just make sure that you're always going through those 2 loops on top. And you got yourself, now you're ready to go. Be careful, because if it turns like this, if it turns onto its side, you're going to get confused at what the 2 loops are. You want to keep it straight up, looking for those top 2 loops. Alrighty. So that is it. That's how you crochet the Plarn. And you just keep doing that. You want to chain 1 at the end of each row, turn your work, then yarn over and do a half double crochet all the way down to the end. So guys, thank you so much. If you have any questions, just in the comments below. Jot them down and I'll get back to you and try to answer them if I've not been clear. I'm real sorry, and I'll be glad to help in any way that I can. Thank you for doing something great. This is going to make life a whole lot more comfortable for people who have to live outside in the elements. You're doing a wonderful thing. Thank you for your time, your effort, and your heart, and I'll talk to you later. Happy crocheting, guys!